I don't have any questions, folks.
Never mind.
I am very jealous of this man.
I condemned him.
He knows how to answer a question.
Move over here, look over here. You're not answering any of my questions.
I'm Pakistani.
I guess if you're confirmed, we'll have to see if pro-Hamas radicals want such a cake baked. Is the right to work law in Wisconsin deeply racist?
If she enjoyed rough sex and bondage, does the carpet match the drapes? What would you do for some jewelry? Asking women if he could sniff their panties. Wow.
I could not accurately articulate that today.
Are you familiar with a working group at Harvard called Clean Slate for Working Power, Building a Just Economy and Democracy?
Yes, I am, Senator.
Were you part of that group?
I was invited to participate in several meetings of that group,
Are
yes.
you familiar with the product that they created?
I am, Senator.
Are you familiar that they advocated labor rights for prisoners?
I know that that report is quite voluminous, and
Well, I mean, it's a simple question. That's one of the, do you understand they recommended 40% of corporate board seats be controlled by workers?
Senator, I participated in several meetings of that group. I did not.
That doesn't jump out at you? Okay. Have you ever said something to the effect that, excuse me, at its core, the right to work movement is deeply racist?
Senator, I believe that in a number of speeches that I gave in my capacity as general counsel of SEIU, I spoke about.
I mean, did you say that?
Senator, I believe I spoke about the historic.
No, that's not. I'm asking, did you say at its core the right to work movement is deeply racist? Because my state is a right to work state. You're going to be on the Fourth Circuit.
I spoke about the historic roots of the
Can
right
you
to
tell me
work.
yes or no that you said this? I mean, you either said it or you didn't.
The speech that you were referencing was a
Never
speech.
mind.
Ms. Berner, you didn't tell Senator Graham the truth, did you?
Senator, I took an oath to tell the truth, and I have done so faithfully.
Now, on February 22nd, 2018, you spoke to the American Constitution Society, and this is what you said. The right to work movement is deeply racist. You said that, didn't you?
Senator, I do not have that speech in front of me. I have spoken on a number of occasions about
You
the
turned
history.
your notes over to us. You didn't read them before you turned them over?
Senator, I've spoken on a number of occasions about the history. I was not speaking
Are you
about.
saying that you didn't say that?
Senator, I've spoken on a number of occasions about
Yes,
the
ma'am.
history.
Are you saying that you didn't say that?
If I have turned over all of my notes from my speeches.
I don't think you're telling the truth, Ms. Berner. Let me ask you another question. Do you remember Mindy Sturgey?
No, sir, I do not remember.
I'm embarrassed you don't remember her. She was one of your union members. She alleged that she was the victim of sexual discrimination at one of your local unions. This is what she said. She alleged that one of the executives there asked her, quote, if she enjoyed rough sex and bondage. She said that the chapter president, Mr. Dave Regan, asked her, quote, does the carpet match the drapes? And, quote, what would you do for some jewelry? She alleged that Mr. Regan told another staffer, quote, that the only way she is getting a job is if she sucks my member of the male anatomy. Another employee said in an affidavit that Mr. Reagan, quote, went around asking women if he could sniff their panties, close quote, at an October 2017 work party. She said another executive, quote, grabbed my upper thigh while I was driving. And she wrote you and asked you to investigate. And you said no, didn't you?
Senator, I have dedicated my career to representing women and families. That has been my work.
You said no, didn't you?
Senator,
You told her that let her own chapter represent or investigate its own misconduct, didn't you?
Senator, I'm going to give you additional time, but I want the witness to be able to fully answer the question.
Senator, the letter that you are quoting from, I wrote in my capacity as counsel to my client. It was the position of my client, and I was acting as an advocate.
You refused to investigate, though, didn't you?
Senator, I believe that I have faithfully adhered to my obligations as an attorney for my client.
I don't think Ms. Sturgis would agree with you. In fact, Mr. Reagan, the chapter president, is still the president, isn't he?
I
You don't
believe
even know?
Dave Reagan is the president of one of our local union, of one of
Wow.
SEIU's local unions. Yes.
Wow.
Ms. Berner, I want to pick up where Senator Graham left off. He read you a quote of yours where you say, at its core, the right to work movement is deeply racist. He asked you several times a simple yes or no statement. Is that what you said? And you refused to answer. So I'd like to ask you again. Did you say that the right to work movement is deeply racist?
Good morning. Thank you for allowing me to answer the question. In the speech I was giving, I was speaking about a historic.
Okay, so this is what you did with Senator Graham. It is a simple yes or no question. I'm not asking you about the context of it. I'm not asking where you did it. I'm not asking what you were wearing that day. I'm saying, did you say that the right to work movement is deeply racist, yes or no?
Senator, the speech I was giving was about a historic.
Look, you're not coming off very well. You've been overcoached on this question. You knew that it was going to be raised. It is a simple yes or no question. By refusing to answer, I guess you're telling everyone up here that the answer is yes, you just don't want to admit that. You don't want it to be on tape in this hearing.
Senator, I believe that individuals who today support the right to work laws are not racist.
So did you say the right to work movement is deeply racist?
I was speaking about the history, the original history of that movement.
Yes or no, did you say the right to work movement is deeply racist?
Historically, the roots of the.
Yes or no, did you say that line?
Senator, I don't have the line of my speech in front of me. There were many lines in that speech.
Okay. Are people in Wisconsin deeply racist? They're right to work state.
Senator, as I mentioned.
Many Wisconsinites fell in the Civil War to free slaves. Were the people of Wisconsin deeply racist?
Senator, I do not believe that it can be said of the people of a state that they are racist. No.
Is the right to work law in Wisconsin deeply racist?
Senator, I'm not aware of the history of the specific laws in that state.
You signed an amicus brief in the Masterpiece Cake Shop case, also known as the Bake the Cake Bigot case, in which a man in Colorado who had a bake shop didn't want to bake a cake for a gay marriage. The Supreme Court ruled in his favor. Let me ask you, if pro-Hamas radicals went into a cake shop, say a Jewish bakery, and said, we want a cake on it that says, Palestine will be free from the river to the sea, and it had a dagger drawn through the Star of David, would that Jewish baker be compelled to bake that cake under your view of the law?
Senator, the Supreme Court ruled in the Masterpiece Cake Shop case that the baker's right to freedom of religion gave that baker the right to deny.
To be exact, they ruled that the Colorado Commission had not applied the law neutrally. They later ruled in the 303 Creative case that a website designer had that right, but I'm asking you specifically about a cake baker, same thing, in which you said he did not have that right. Would a Jewish baker be compelled to make a cake that says Palestine will be free from the river to the sea with a dagger through the Star of David?
Senator, the Supreme Court in the Bostock case did not rule along the lines of, in the Masterpiece Cake case, did not rule along the lines that was advocated by my client. The brief that you are referencing was a brief that I submitted on behalf of my client. And were I to be so fortunate to be confirmed, I would, of course, apply that Supreme Court precedent like every other Supreme Court precedent or Fourth Circuit precedent that was relevant to the facts that came before me.
Well, I guess if you're confirmed, we'll have to see if pro-Hamas radicals want such a cake baked.
I don't have any questions, folks. I just wanted to kind of level set the conversation here in this hearing with the professional opinion of folks that you respect, that we respect, is much more meaningful and relevant for consideration in this decision. And thank you both and your families for supporting you in this opportunity to serve.
Are you familiar with the Center for Security, Race, and Rights at Rutgers Law School?
I am, Senator.
Okay, were you on that board?
I was on an advisory board.
Yeah, advisory board from 2019 to 2023.
Yes, sir.
Are you familiar with a symposium on the 20 years since 9/11, whose narrative, the exceptionalism of 9/11, is a panel talking about 9/11 20 years later?
I'm not familiar with that, Senator, no.
Okay, you don't know anything about it?
No, Senator, I was on an advisory board which met once a year, and its goal was to talk about what areas of academic focus would be useful for the Senate.
You're not aware that the board that you're advising was one of the co-sponsors whose narrative 20 years later that had panelists, including someone who was convicted for providing support to Islamic Jihad.
Senator, I've never heard of that event. I don't know anything about it. This was not a board of directors. This was an advisory board.
I'm just trying to figure out the board you're advising. They had 3 people. One was convicted, conspiring to support Islamic Jihad, a terrorist group.
You've been a passionate advocate and an effective advocate for many controversial issues. Will you carry that with you to the bench when you're faced with different laws and different facts that may draw you to a different conclusion?
Senator, good morning, and thank you for that question and the opportunity to respond. I have, during the course of my career, zealously advocated on behalf of millions of working men and women, and I've been proud of that work. I understand that the role of a judge is a very different role than the role of an advocate.
Senator, I believe it's critical and the foundation of our legal system that attorneys must effectively advocate for their clients, regardless of whether they agree with them or not.
And faced with a challenging situation of conscience on the court, when it comes down to different laws and different facts, what is your disposition?
Senator, my approach is always to study with an open mind and dispassionately the law and the facts and do my very best to come to a fair and just adjudication.
Thank you very much. I am really excited right now, and for all of my colleagues like Senator Graham who love New Jersey almost as much as they love their own states, this is a very great moment that I have. It's just an honor, an immense honor, to introduce Adeel Mangi as a nominee to serve as a circuit court judge on the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Third Circuit. Now, I confess that this introduction may be a little bit strained because I am very jealous of this man. Not only did he marry such an extraordinary woman that somehow outdoes him in stature, prowess, grace, and intelligence, but he also makes me jealous because he has 2 extraordinary boys who are sitting there with him right now, and truly they will outshadow the parents in the future.
Tell me about Title VI of the Civil Rights Act of 1964.
Title VI, I believe, Senator, is the provision of the Civil Rights Act of 1964, which prohibits the discrimination based on religious preferences, I believe. Oh, I'm sorry. May I strike that? I'm sorry, Senator. I was thinking of Title VII. Apologies. As you're well aware, I'm sure from my record, Senator, in my 18 years as a federal litigator, as well as my 4.5 years on the state court bench, I didn't have the opportunity to litigate issues related to Title VI of the Civil Rights Act. So apologies for the misstatement. And were I to be so fortunate to be confirmed, Senator, I would make sure with no uncertainty that I would be fully fluent in that issue were it to be presented to me on the bench.
Okay. Judge, is it Brisco?
It's Brisco.
Brisco,
Senator.
I apologize.
No problem.
Tell me about Title VI of the Civil Rights Act of 1964.
Senator, in my 17 years as a member of the bar and 5 years on the bench, I have not had the occasion to address Title VI in my career. However, if I am so fortunate to be confirmed as an Article III judge, I would certainly research and study to be prepared to address that issue, sir.
Judge Lund?
Thank you, Senator Kennedy. I cannot add anything that my panelists have not otherwise add. I can also assure you, though, in the 15 years that I've had the privilege to serve as a judge, that particular provision has not been put before me, but if it were to, I would faithfully review it and appropriately apply all Supreme Court, United States, and Seventh Circuit Court precedent that's put before me.
Well, Title VI is kind of timely, isn't it? I mean, I'm sure you all read the newspapers, right? Okay. Where does the standing requirement come from?
Senator Kennedy, the standing requirement stems from the cases and controversies provision of Article 3.
Okay. Thank you for that. Tell me about the law of the case doctrine.
The law of the case doctrine is when a case has been adjudicated, then there cannot be any other collateral claims stemming from the issues that were already litigated.
Okay, thank you for that. Tell me about federal preemption.
Thank you, Senator, for that question. In just using the words in and of themselves, I would assume that that the phrase speaks for itself, that federal law would preempt anything else that would come before it. But again, if I were posed with that particular legal phrase, I would do all that I could to faithfully review what specifically it is about and faithfully apply that definition to whatever the situation was that was posed in front of me.
Well, where does federal preemption come from?
Well, federal preemption comes from the Supremacy Clause, that federal laws in the Constitution are supreme and state courts are required to uphold them.
And how do you know if there's federal preemption?
Again, I would look towards Article 6 of the Constitution, which again is the provision in which
You won't find it there. How do you know when federal preemption happens? You're going to see it a lot as a federal judge.
Thank you, Senator Kennedy. Again, I would be looking towards Supreme Court precedent, Seventh Circuit Court of Appeals precedent to review any of those particular issues that would come before the court and would faithfully apply them.
You don't know the rule for determining federal preemption?
I could not accurately articulate that today. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Here's a statement. The demand to center Israel's right to self-defense, that's in scare quotes, self-defense, erases the colonial context and delegitimizes the Palestinian right to resistance. We are in awe of the Palestinian struggle to resist violent occupation, removal, erasure, and the expansion of Israeli settler colonialism. Do you agree with that, yes or no? I realize you didn't write it, and you may not know who the author is, may never have heard of these people before. I just want to know, does this represent your view, yes or no?
Senator, any attempt to justify what happened on October 7th, I have absolutely no...
Well, that's not the context here. This is talking about any discussion of Israel's right to self-defense erases the colonial context. It's calling Israel a colonial state. So could we just answer my question? Do you agree with this, yes or no?
Senator, I don't claim to be an expert on the Middle East, I don't have the historic or regional
That
expertise.
sounds like a maybe. That's a maybe. Maybe you agree? Can
No.
we get a yes or a no?
Each say this is a policy question or a question for
Well, no,
foreign
wait.
experts.
That's what I don't understand. By the way, this was written by the director of the center you sat on the board of, that you advised. This is the director, not some random professor, the director, who published it in an open letter. So when you say it's a policy, what's the policy about calling Israel a violent settler colonialist state? Why is that a policy question?
Senator, that is not a statement that I had any involvement with.
Okay, good. So would you condemn it then? You say this does not represent your views.
Senator, I have no basis as a judicial nominee to cast views on the Middle East or what does or does not happen
This
there.
is what you're not answering my question. I'm asking you whether this individual who said that Israel was a violent settler colonial state, I'm just trying to get you to say, do you agree with that or not? And I've asked you now 4 different times, 4 different ways. You're not answering me. Why is that? Why can't you just say, no, I don't agree with this? Let's try again.
Yeah.
Do you agree with this statement, yes or no?
Senator, in order to agree or disagree with any statement, I need to have a sufficient factual background to assess it.
So in other words, you can't say whether or not Israel is a violent colonial state. You think that's a difficult question?
Oh, God.
That is not an issue with which I have any expertise.
Is the Holocaust also a difficult question? Does that need context?
No.
Is that a policy question?
I am quite happy to address the Holocaust, Senator.
Why aren't you happy to address this then? Why is it that an individual in the center that you directed who calls Israel a violent colonialist state, those are racist comments, why can't you condemn that? I don't understand it. You won't answer my questions, you won't answer Senator Cruz's questions, you wouldn't answer Senator Kennedy's questions. I don't understand why this is complicated.
Senator, I'm Pakistani. I didn't grow up in the Middle East.
I didn't either. I didn't either, but that doesn't mean that I can't say that somebody who says that a Jewish state is a violent colonialist enterprise is wrong. This isn't a policy question, it's a moral question. This is a moral issue.
Senator, I am not in a position to make any policy pronouncements about actions in the Middle East.
Does Israel have a right to exist?
Yes.
Should American Jews be safe in their homes and on their campuses?
Senator, there is
Just
no
yes
one.
or no, please. Spare me the lectures. Yes or no? Did you advise against this letter? You sat on the advisory board. Did you advise against it?
I never even heard of that letter.
How is that possible? What did you do on this board for all these years? This was years before you left it.
It's an advisory board that met once a year to talk about academic research.
Do you not think it's relevant to the setting in the academy that Jewish students might feel unsafe when they have a tenured professor who's the director of a center saying that Israel is a violent colonialist state? Do you think that may not have an effect on the educational environment?
Senator, I abhor.
But you didn't care to look into it?
May I respond?
But I've heard your answers, and they're all move over here, look over here. You're not answering any of my questions. And I can't figure out why. I can't figure out why you won't just say that this was wrong. So you didn't advise against it. You didn't condemn it. You didn't look into the center's activities. Do you regret that? Do you regret not at the time taking a moral stand against these frankly racist condemnations of Jewish Americans, Jewish people in the state of Israel? Do you think it was wrong for you to be silent?
Senator, I didn't know anything about
Why
it.
didn't you? Didn't you have a moral obligation to know about a center that you sat on the board of for years, whose director was calling Jewish people colonialist, violent settlers? Do you not have a moral obligation to know and say something?
That is not the function of an academic advisory board, but I abhor.
But it is the function of a responsible jurist and a responsible citizen. And I would just suggest to you that you failed it.
When exactly did you leave that position?
I believe I communicated it to the director in about June, perhaps May.
Okay. Why did you, after so many years of being affiliated with them, why did you leave in May or June?
Senator, I had views on certain academic areas that I thought the center should focus on. And My notion was that the center should be producing high-quality academic research regarding anti-Muslim bigotry that could then be used in civil rights litigation.
Okay.
The center, please.
Got it. Thank you.
With regard to the center, as I mentioned earlier, I served on an advisory board. Its function was to meet approximately once a year and to focus on what areas of academic research at Rutgers Law School might be productive to engage in. For example...
So you signed up to be on an advisory board and you just didn't know what they were doing? You just didn't treat the responsibility very seriously?
The responsibility, Senator, was to advise on areas of academic research, not
so
on
I
the
want to
day-to-day...
return, you're a practicing lawyer, I want to return to the question I asked.
Yes.
Which is, do you agree with the sentiments that I just read you from the director of the center on whose advisory board you served?
Senator, I have no knowledge of that speech or statements that you're referencing.
Do you believe that Israel is an occupying force in Palestine?
Senator, the history of that region is very complex, and I don't claim to be an expert in it.
All right, let me ask you this. Same letter posted by the same director, quote, "We are in awe of the Palestinian struggle to resist violent occupation, removal, erasure, and the expansion of Israeli settler colonialism." Do you agree with that sentiment?
I'll give you the same answer, Senator, which is that is a very complex history in the region.
It needs context?
No, it means it is a history that is the domain of policymakers.
So no, it is not. Israel is not a violent occupier engaged in settler colonialism. That is a political statement, and you are unwilling to disagree with it, which suggests there's a reason you were on that board. There was a reason. It's actually quite remarkable that you're not even willing to disclaim the statement, "We're in awe of the Palestinian struggle to resist," in light of October 7th.
Senator, I stated this earlier, but let me repeat it because I think it's critically important.
Do you condemn the atrocities of the Hamas terrorists?
Yes, that's what I was about to address, Senator.
And is there any justification for those atrocities?
Senator, I'll repeat myself. The events of October 7th were a horror involving the deaths of innocent civilians. That is contrary...
I'm going to ask the question again. Is there any justification for those atrocities?
That was going to be my next sentence, Senator, which is, I have no patience, none, for any attempts to justify or defend those events.
Well, let me ask you this. What do you think about the fact that the center on whose board you served hosted, on the 20th anniversary of September 11th, an event with a convicted terrorist who pleaded guilty? Dr. Sami al-Iranian was convicted of conspiracy to contribute services or benefits to a terrorist organization, and Dr. Hatem Bazian explicitly called for intifada against the United States. Do you agree with those sentiments?
Senator, I'd like to say two things on that point. Number one, on 9/11, I was in New York. I saw what happened. It was my city that was attacked. Number two, I've never heard of this event prior to today. It was never brought to the advisory board, which meant once a year to talk about academic issues.
Are you willing to denounce the center on whose board you served inviting a convicted terrorist, a supporter of Palestinian Islamic Jihad? By the way, Palestinian Islamic Jihad participated in the October 7th atrocities. Are you willing to condemn their inviting a supporter of their to attack America and to support the reasons for the September 11th attacks?
Senator, I don't think anyone can feel more strongly about what happened on 9/11 than someone who was there, who saw with their own eyes smoke billowing from their towers.
But you won't condemn this.
Senator, let him complete his answer, would you? Your time
He's
is
filibustering and not answering questions, and so I'm going to ask him to answer the question I ask instead of giving a speech on a different topic. And Mr. Chairman, you do this all the time. When a question is going badly for a Democrat witness, you jump in and try to save the witness. He knows how to answer a question. When I ask a question, he gives a speech on a different topic because he doesn't want to answer it. My question is simple. Do you condemn this event that was celebrating Palestinian Islamic Jihad? Yes or no?
You should not bully the witnesses nor try to bully members of the committee.
Asking a question is not bullying.
Complete your answer, please.
Thank you, Chair Durbin. I'll answer your question very directly, Senator Cruz. I will condemn without equivocation any terrorism, any terrorist, or any act of terrorism, or any defense of any act of terrorism. I don't know
This event?
I don't know anything about this event or who these people are. I've never heard of any of them. If someone on there is a terrorist, I condemn them.